Welcome to Beyond the Business Card podcast.
I thought, this is it. This is my big moment. I'm going to go, be the next Zuckerbergs, Spiegel, whoever else. And no one downloaded it.
Today, we sit down with Mike Khouri, founder and CEO of Tactical, a creative and innovation agency he launched in 2013. Growing up between the UAE and Australia, Mike's multicultural upbringing and early experiences taught him resilience and adaptability. These are traits that have fueled his journey as an entrepreneur. From dreaming of the MBA to launching Tactical, he's turned challenges into opportunities, building a social-first agency that's redefined digital marketing. Get ready for a story of grit, growth, and game-changing ideas. Mike, it is a pleasure to have you with us today. Tell us about your journey. Tell us about how you arrived here.
Wow, pleasure. Thank you very much, Justin. How did I arrive here? I was born here to start with. My parents took a punt on the Middle East many moons ago. Born in Abu Dhabi. Grew up between here and Australia. So in that time, saw Dubai change a lot. And it's been an amazing journey. I'm not going to lie. It's been a lot of fun. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into.
Well, I mean, I'm first of all, I'm fascinated because you were born here. You're the first guest we've had on that's been born in the UAE. Right. My kids are actually born in the UAE, but they were born at a very different time. What was it like back then?
What was it like? So I was born in Abu Dhabi. In a matter of 5-6 years, I had lived in Al Ain, Sharjah. I went to school in Sharjah, Dubai. No one came to Dubai back then, and actually there's probably similarities to it today. There's, people came here for opportunity. If you're doing really well in the UK, doing really well in Oz, in the US, etc., you didn't have a real purpose to come here. So my parents basically fled and came here to set up a better life and chase opportunity. And that's the sort of like network you had around you. You had a lot of other people who were sort of building a life here, coming here to make bread for the long run. So I had friends from all over. I remember watching a video when I was a kid. I was running around and I had a really strong Indian accent because all my friends in Al Ain were Indians. Yeah. And that was one part of my life. And then, before as a teenager, growing up listening to Tupac and Biggie was like how I got a bit more of an American twang of an accent. And I was running around with friends from the UK to Saudi to Oz, et cetera, et cetera. And that just became quite a normal life, that you just were relatable to anyone and everyone that you came across. But when I moved to Oz, that's when I really had a massive realization of how different the upbringing I had, not just in the Middle East, but in Dubai was. When I had to explain to people in Oz where Dubai was, I was like, where they had the Gulf War, in Iran and all that stuff that's going on there, near there. And they had no idea. They had no idea where Dubai was. And I felt pretty lucky. I had a massive identity crisis, don't get me wrong. Didn't know what home, what nationality was or where home was, but I felt very lucky to especially build the relationships, the roots, the upbringing that I had in this part of the world, because it always felt like it was on the up. Yeah. And the people I'd met were always very open, very considered, because we're all in the same boat. So I'd imagine it's like being an expat in other parts of the world, whether it's in parts of Africa, parts of Asia, etc. The communities really come together and look out for one another. And that's what it was like. It was amazing. There weren't many schools. So everyone sort of knew everyone. I think the high school I went to, we had 300 in the whole school. Wow. And then when I went to Sydney, firstly I had to wear khaki pants, shirt and socks, which... I think Steve Owen with a boater. And I think we had 300 in my year. We had 1,400 in high school. So it's a very different world. And, then you get exposed to, petty crime or this, that, the other, you get intimidated, so streetwise, you realize I need to grow up. So high school for me was very much that, growing up and being exposed to the real world. So that when I did come back here, not only did I feel like it was incredibly special, and almost still very hidden, but also realized that the world doesn't operate like it does in Dubai. Yep. And things were likely to change. But no, it was super special. I kind of always said, I don't know if you remember the TV show Lost.
Yes, I do.
The island from Lost. That for me is Dubai. The amount of people I saw come and go, or have seen come and go over the years. has been massive. But at the same time, people come back. They keep coming back.
But it's giving you friends and contacts around the world, I imagine, as
100%,
well.
100%, but not just around the world, like across many different industries, across many different interests, whether it's sport to whatever. Whereas growing up in Oz, the school I went to, most of my mates work in finance, legal, banking, and they're all working at the same firms.
Gotcha.
They all live in very similar parts of the city. They all have 3 kids. Their kids are now going to the same high school. Some are going through the same life cycle of their marriages. Like, it's just very copy paste a little bit. Or at least too copy paste for me. I'm not saying like they have amazing, comfortable, happy lives. But there's a certain energy you get in a growth environment, and Dubai is still very much in that growth environment. The Middle East is in its growth environment,
Absolutely.
right? Dubai, I think, is just a very good case study of what it looks like. And, it's following a Singapore model. It's following a model that's been proven elsewhere. But for this part of the world, it still feels very new.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an amazing privilege to get oversight and see what it looks like. And yeah, look, there's, my parents say like, Dubai is just a young person's city, and I'm not at that age, but I'm coming of that age where I'm looking back and being like, actually, yeah, it is very much a young person's city. You've got a couple of grey
whiskers, but I still consider
a few. But no, I see it, right? Like, you see it now in the last couple of years, people coming into the city, they're young, they're looking for opportunity, they're hungry, they're driven. And that's the rotation of growth in the country. So it's an incredible place.
I'm intrigued. What made your parents choose the UAE as a place that they wanted to go to then?
All right, so I'll give you a bit of backstory. So my dad's originally Lebanese.
Yeah.
My mom's Polish.
Yeah.
My dad's side of the family have always, through war, had to run away.
Yeah.
And in the 70s, mid-70s, late 70s, there was a war in Lebanon. My dad came over here with following his brother, who was an architect. So he came out here, worked on a rig. So we'd do 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And then went to the airport one day and, with his passport said, "Where can I go?" And they're like, "There's a flight to Bulgaria in 3 hours. Do you want to get on that?" So he got on that with his friend and met my mum on holiday there. She was in communist Poland at the time. And when he flew back, every break he got, he'd go see her. And they were living off food stamps, and he was taking bags of food, like putting steaks and stuff in the suitcase. Wow. And then realized, like, actually, this isn't a great life for you either. Come over to the Middle East. So he got off the rig, and I think they, don't know if they moved to Dubai or Sharjah first. My sister who's older than me, is born in Sharjah.
Gotcha.
But that was it. They're running away from, not running away, but they're chasing a bigger dream. And I think that's what Dubai offers, is the city of dreams.
Even back then. Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a story.
Yeah, so that's the start.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then the Australia connection came from...
So again, in the 70s, my dad's side of the family all moved to Oz.
Yeah.
A lot of them, big family as well. So they moved to Aussie and grew up lived in Sydney, settled there. And then, when after I was born, we were here for about 2 years, and then moved to Sydney until about 6, came back here and back and forth. When I was 14, moved back to Sydney, and then back here when I was 21. I came here on holiday.
Yeah.
I didn't even stay for my graduation at uni. I just came straight off a flight, went to a friend's place, ended up at a party with old mates, and then it ended up being like just as a massive reunion, and everyone's coming back wanting to do something similar. And we just never wanted to leave. And I came here on holiday and I never left.
Amazing.
So that's the story.
But one thing I will say is, and I suppose most of my kids are soon. Well, my oldest is soon to be 10, and my son's 8, and youngest daughter 5. And my wife and I have this forever debate, because obviously they've lived this. My kids have lived in Singapore and Dubai, this kind of cocooned life. We think that they need to get a bit streetwise. We think they're going to need to go to the UK. You got Oz. Do you think that played a big part in your life? And do you think you're going to have to send your kids off to get streetwise into Oz as well?
So going to Oz when I was 14, it was camp. The school I went to, they had a cadet scheme. So before I actually started school, because I came, like, the way the school year finishes in Oz is beginning of the year. So Feb to November, December. It's different to this part of the world, the British curriculum. So the first thing I did was a end of term break, and they had a cadet course or 3-day expedition that they were doing, and they said that would be good for me to go on
cadet course.
Yeah. So I went on this thing, and there was about 200 boys in my year. And it was just torrential rain and horrible like conditions. I think kids got Casevac for hypothermia. I was like in this tent, like sleeping in literally a stream of rainfall. Saw people like stack it in the rain and in the dark, like smash their face against a big metal peg for the tent. I'm like, where am I? What am I doing here? Why am I here? So that was like my onboarding to Sydney. And then not long after, I got mugged at a train station. I got this, that. Like, you just get exposed to the realities of the world from like a bigger part of I guess, a big grown up city. But even just in school, like growing up here, I played basketball. There wasn't a lot of people I played against, and I thought I was the best in the world. I was like, yeah, this is pretty easy. I'm taller than most people. Like, I can do more than them with my height. Yeah. And then I went to Oz, and I just got the biggest reality check. So it was like, getting like, being streetwise and getting brought up to speed on what the real world looks like, but also schooled in school. Yeah. And that was great conditioning for my, I guess, just obviously it shot my confidence somewhat, but it was great conditioning for me because, I went from like with a mindset of like, I want to be the best in Dubai to I want to be the best in my school, to being the best in the city, best in the country, to going to university in the UK and playing against, people across the country who'd flown over from the world. I'm like, I want to be the best in university. I want to be the best in the country again. Like I wanted to, that was a constant drive for me. So the same, I guess, ambition is driven into work. So even growing a business here or working here and building on my career has always been, I want to be the biggest, I want to be the best at this. I don't want to just show up and make numbers. I want to make sure I'm, I learn what what the level playing field is, and I want to exceed it. So I guess that drive from being exposed to it in my upbringing is also spilled over to work.
And no doubt when you came back on holiday, you must have just gone, right, this place, stuff's happening here. Yeah, I could take everything I've just learned over in Oz and that sort of streetwise nature. I can take my understanding of the region and I could just implant both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was as calculated as that. I definitely came back and I was like, where is this roundabout come from? Where is this building come from? Where? Like you saw the change very, very quickly. Right. I'd come over. So my mum stayed in Dubai at the time. So like my, each break within terms or whatever, I'd try and come over to see mum and truthfully, mostly my mates. But she'll, I have to say that because she'll otherwise correct me. Yeah, she'll correct me otherwise. But no, like you definitely saw it, right? Like you saw more people coming in. Incredibly, like I've got a lot of South African friends at the moment. My wife was born and grew up in South Africa, but honestly, up until 14, I'd never met anyone from South Africa. And then all of a sudden, there was this huge like influx of South Africans. But then you like learn new cultures. You learn like you start to see that every time I come back here, there's something new for me. Yeah, and that was always very, I guess, exciting. Not just being able to like have personal growth, but also see like, well, if this wave is growing, how can I surf it? Like, what can I do with this? Not necessarily what I could take just from my experiences abroad. It was more so, well, the macro is heavily invested in the right direction. It's trending upwards. If I'm going to bet on something, it feels like a pretty safe bet. Yeah, I agree. So now I got to understand, you came from university back here on holiday, and then you started, is it in PR and marketing world? Yeah, so first job was working in PR. I worked for a really nice guy named Nick, who gave me a punt.
Nick who gave you a punt?
Nick who gave me a punt.
That sounds like a great first job story.
He was a really nice guy, actually. I got into PR, and I thought PR was a gig I really enjoyed. In truth, I didn't know what I really wanted. I remember sitting in traffic, surprisingly in Dubai, sitting in traffic, and back then I think it was 7 days. Do you remember 7 days?
Yeah, I do.
Newspaper. Yeah.
They were an old client of mine, actually. Yeah,
7 days that you only got 6 days a week.
Yeah, and it was the most old school company you've ever been to.
It was great though. Sudoku at the back.
Part of the Daily Mail group.
There is. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so. I was sitting in it was 7 days. I'm pretty sure it was. Anyways,
the freebie news.
Yeah. But I was looking through a paper and I saw a job post for a contracts manager in a travel company, a company called Gulliver's Travel Associates, originally British, but then got bought out by American business called Travelport. And I was like, wow,
upstairs.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I was like, excellent. Like, this sounds like an exciting opportunity. Like, it was a contract negotiator, actually. Oh, yes. Is the way they put it. It's contract manager as a title, but like on the job ad. Maybe that's a good tip for you, right? How to promote the job ad. So contract negotiator. I was like, shit, that sounds fun. So I applied, and I was 22 at the time. Applied, and like my seniors were a lot older, a lot more experienced, and they took a punt on me again. So this was Shane who took a punt, and they gave me the job looking after hotels across everything but the beach. So my boss, if he watches this, it's fine, but he wanted all the fancy hotels. Yeah. He wanted the fancy
didn't leave
lunches.
you much, did he?
No, but he did actually. He left me Dubai, Deira, Sheikh Zayed Road, and Oman. So for me, it was great because I used to, as a 22-year-old, I'd sit there with GMs, directors of sales and marketing who were 20 years my senior, and I had to find a way to be relatable to them and add value, right? So first I had to break the ice, and excuse the French, but I was like, you eat, sleep, and shit the same as I do. Mm-hmm. Let's have conversations, and I'll just find like personal interests. A lot of the hotels that were being run out of, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai and Deira, I'd just go and like watch the cricket with the guys there, and then just do a deal and get whatever I needed signed. And obviously, there's a power of a business card which helped. But yeah, he took a punt on me then. So that was PR first, then travel. And then after that, I got headhunted by a company called Fritz Hansen out of Denmark. So massive, iconic furniture and design brand.
What was the connection there?
So they were starting a hotel division,
right?
So my boss there at the time, his name is Martin, took another punt on me. So all these guys that took a punt, thank you very much. But he took a punt on me, and he's like, look, we're starting up a hotel division. We want someone who's got experience with hoteliers across the industry to sell. And basically, as a brand, they started by designing the interiors of a hotel. So they wanted to kind of expand that within their portfolio in the Middle East. I think their first client on the ground was Emirates. So they saw a huge opportunity with like hospitality brands, etc., travel and hospitality. And he was an ex-hotelier himself. So he's like, again, took a punt to me, flew me to Denmark for an interview. He's like, yeah, let's go for it. I was like, cool. Flew back. And the beauty of that role was I was the first hire on the ground. So I also had the opportunity to set up the business. And going through that experience of setting things up, I learned a lot around, we call it red tape here, call it bureaucracy, whatever it is that you want. Learn a lot about building or setting up a business. So lease, licensing, laws, this, that, anything that had to kind of enable starting the business from scratch, bank accounts, et cetera, and it was hard. It wasn't easy, right? So that in itself was a process. I remember having to go to Emirates MBD to open up a bank account. Oh no, it was actually get a license from Media City, because it was the only licensing authority at the time. And I had to build a business case. I had to submit it. Like now they just, you pay, you get your license. It's easy. Didn't have to do the same.
I had to do that.
Did you? Yeah. So going through that pain, let's call it, at that time, and we actually started the office in Design House, just down the road from here, and that was great. I had this massive office, but it was just me, and then credit crunch hit, right? And this is like luxury, high end target market, but also like positioning of the brand, and that really got affected, right? So Dubai,
I arrived September 2008.
Yeah. So there you go. Perfect timing.
I know
Perfect
exactly
timing.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
So not only was it an exodus, of people leaving the city, it was also shit. What's going to happen to me? Yeah. Where's this all going? And I was very like positive and motivated, so that didn't really deter me too much. And then what was it? It was probably 2009 by this point. So the concrete graveyard of Dubai started to surface. It's amazing. Like looking out this window now, you can still see properties still not finished from when they were being built at the time. And while that happened, I was playing basketball and ended up breaking my knee playing in a game against Chris Fade.
Okay.
So my claim to fame is that he broke my knee, fell on the floor.
Was he he was a bit bigger then?
I'm not gonna comment too much on his physique. I don't need any sort of backlash online. But no, he was a different mold.
Yeah.
And we're playing a game. It's a bit of trash talk, all friendly, of course. And then just went up to block a shot, knee on knee. I landed, looked at my knee. It's like concaved in. I pulled up my shorts. My kneecap's up here. I was like, oh, this is fun.
Oh my God.
And he runs over and he's like, oh, mate, I'm on the radio. Can I take a photo and put on a blog? I was like, yeah, sure. Go for it. I was just like,
Not, are you okay?
I mean, it was a bit of that, but truthfully, I was like, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. Like, I told my mate, just take my keys for the car, drive it home. I got to go to Abu Dhabi tomorrow. I got a big meeting. And then the ambulance came, and my mate's like, I don't think this is gonna work out like that. Don't worry, leave your car. I went to the hospital. And they said it was pretty messed up. So I was told I was never going to walk, never going to run again, possibly walk again. After 5 days of being in hospital, life just became very different. So I was stuck in bed for about 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 weeks before I could start physio properly. And then 3 months, really, I was like stabbing myself with blood thinners every day, and had an amazing network of friends who looked after me every single day. So people bringing me food and looking after me, and it was amazing. I was super privileged, very, very lucky. Got made redundant in that time as well. This is not a time of work from home.
If it rains, it pours.
Yeah, but again, it was credit crunch, and I couldn't do my role actively. There's someone else that could replace me. I totally get the business decision. And I was like, actually, I can invest my time in trying to walk again, trying to run again, trying to, build some sort of a future for my health. And that's what happened. So I ended up, after being made redundant, ended up just going all in on recovery. So 125 odd sessions in the first year of physio, plus everything on the side. Like, that's a full-time job almost. But luckily I had amazing, support along the way as well. Some really dear friends now who helped me recover, and, they're physiotherapists and got me back on track. But all the while I was still sat there looking at the world and saying, what problems could I solve? I speak to a friend of mine who was based in Saudi at the time, and I was like, you've got connections in Saudi to the gold trade. I have maybe a connection or two in Oz that can maybe get into mining. Is there a business there? And then Dubai's got really shit wine. A mate of mine's really good with wine in Oz. Can he maybe could we import wine? This is back in the days of just Jacob's Creek. Yeah. Great wine still.
Yeah.
I have to say that we've worked at Jacob's Creek, great wine, but as in there's no mass selection. But no, there was problems in the world that I was trying to solve. Yeah. And I remember being at dinner one night with a friend of mine, and saw someone who sat at the table on a date, or a couple were there, and they had this big thick book, The Entertainer, with all the vouchers in it, and it's just a huge signal, right? It's like I'm getting 2 for 1 on my food.
Everyone in those days lived by these voucher
100%.
books. Yeah.
I mean, I did. Yeah. Right. But I was looking at this. For me, I didn't care because I was there with a friend. If I pulled it out, it's fine. But he was there on a date, and I'm like, it's a huge signal. And what, is there a better way to do this? And it's very early days of the iPhone. So I was like, what about just building the entertainer on my phone, build an app for it? So a friend of mine and I looked into it. I'm going to call him out, Anthony. He ended up not getting involved in the venture. He had a partner. They got married and have kids, and very, very happy and very, very successful. So he's gone on to do great things. But I ended up launching this app, or building this app. I tried to find people to help me build it. I was speaking to agencies, and no one had really done anything like that in the UAE at the time. So I called it Shoe to Do. So what to do. And the biggest learning I had there was that I went very wide. I was like, okay, the entertainer is just for food. What about for retail? What about for et cetera, travel, this, that. And when I finally built it, I was a bit of a perfectionist when it came to how to build the perfect, user experience, the product, etc.
Which is probably what they say don't do with your MVP.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Learn a lot through the process. That in itself, I paid. I had a bit of money in the bank. When I say a bit, not a lot of money, but I had money in the bank, and then I invested all of that into building this app. So that was my university. That was University 2.0. Built the app. Went live. I sat in Central Perk in Jumeirah 3, MCG 1, 10 a.m. Thought, this is it. This is my big moment. I'm going to go, be the next Zuckerbergs, Spiegel, whoever else. And no one downloaded it. No one downloaded it at all. So I thought it was enough just to put on the App Store. And given I had worked in marketing in the past, That's obviously a bit dumb. I didn't really think that through, because you're just so invested in product. Like the world needs this product. But that said, ended up going live and getting some nice traction here and there. But starting to speak to agencies at the time as well, consultants, like, help me solve this go-to-market problem. And all agencies here just gave me the same traditional solution to my digital problem. Put on a billboard, put it on in a magazine, put it on the radio, put it on TV. And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing if I had the budget, but I don't. And also, I don't believe in it because this is a digital, product, and these are all very traditional touch points. What about helping me drive like real conversion? I get the brand building exercise I need that can offer, but I want like direct conversion because I need those results to show to partners. It's a chicken and egg, right? Yeah. Like, we've got this many people using the app versus we've got this many partners on the app. And just like when it came to building the app, I was like, well, fuck it, I'll just build it myself. So went very deep early on Facebook and Twitter, growth hacking, learning my way around it. And then it got to the point where we went, where we were getting some traction, but people also started to come to me and say, hey, can you build an app for my friend who's got, they're marketing manager at this business, or this person's starting a new business and they need an app, and I'm referring you. And then I got introduced to a government agency in Oman, and they wanted to build an app, and I was like, sure, I can do that for you. So while building the proposal for that, I realized, actually, I don't really care about the voucher problem. Like, that's not something I'm passionate about. Don't really care about that. But I care about digitizing businesses, taking them from a traditional physical world to the online.
You fell
virtual.
into it, but it was amazing.
Yeah, totally. And look, it wasn't planned, right? Now that I reflect, that's basically what happened. And this government agency took a punt on me. But again, like in Oz, if you want to start a business, you get a tax file number. It's $150. Back then, God knows what it is now. And you're good to go. Whereas here, it's like, shit, I need a trade license, I need a company name, I need. So this is the truth of how the agency started. I was like, okay, we need to build a business. So launched it as Tactical at 11 p.m. What was it? I can't remember. It was
11 p.m.
Yeah, and then the meeting was at 7 a.m.
Right.
So in Oman, so in a place called Sohar, which I call so far, because there's a long drive to do. But we got the contract, and that was amazing. That was a start. So employee number one back then is still with us today.
Oh, wow.
She's incredible.
That's amazing.
It's 11 years on.
What a great story that is.
Yeah. But then there's massive iterations of the businesses then, right? So cool, we're design and build, let's call it agency at the time, building web and mobile solutions, digitizing traditional businesses for the digital world. And then, we had other people come to us saying, help build me this website for an e-com, or build me this app to do this. And what was amazing at that time was I could benchmark whatever we were building against the best in the world. So you want to build a banking app? Okay, what's the best banking app around the world? Let me do my desktop research, like wherever I can find the intel. And then ultimately, if that's the standard, how do I exceed it? That's it. Sounds very basic, but it was all outcome led, right? So the same thing with web, same thing with building out, different verticals, whether it's in sport, retail, banking, whatever. But those projects took a long time. And I got very lucky. People took a lot of punts on me through that journey, and I actually started doing a lot of work in Sharjah, which is really interesting and really great. And got to the point where, some of these projects would take, initially they'd be scoped to do 3 months, 4 months, and then a year and a half later, 2 years later, we're still waiting. But when they'd come to fruition and go live, those people had the same problem. They're like, why am I not the next Jeff Bezos? Like, what's happening? Why is no one downloading my app? Why is no one visiting and buying stuff from my store? And it's like, I got you. Like, I've been there. You just have no market presence. So we use social as a driver for that. So as we kept doing that, that was quite quite interesting to see how the extension of services started to add to just design and build, but also go to market. Yep. And then I was actually on holiday with a friend of mine, this girl Kelly, who actually placed me. She used to work in recruitment. Right. She placed me in the role with the Danish company that I was at, and she now is quite senior at Airbnb, doing amazing things. Has gone on to have an amazing career as well. So started recruitment, is now there. And she was just telling me how they recruited from specific markets, specific universities for Airbnb, and how that's where the best talent in the world was. So they just cherry pick against your Snaps, your Facebooks at the time, your Twitters at the time, whoever, and everyone's fighting for the best talent from a few universities. And I just had this light bulb moment. I was like, shit, if I can't do all that work, and I'm not the best in the world at it, so I need to hire the best in the world. And if the best in the world is going, or they're going to these types of tech companies, and then like below that you've got your Cisco's and your Microsofts of the world or whatever, and then below that you've got your or the shiny tech, I should say, and then you're more like, you know, heavy sort of enterprise tech, and then you go down to big agencies, and then all the way at the bottom is us. So how am I going to get the best talent in the world? And if I can't be building the best product in the world, then what am I doing it for? I don't want to just make up numbers. And I've never like gotten into business with the ambition to run off a spreadsheet and like how much money am I going to make on each transaction. It's not that at all. Like for me, it's I uphold the work as the most important thing. That's my personal belief. And as a result, I was like, shit, if I can't be the best in the world at it, and we can't hire the best in the world, then what are we doing it for? So that's when that seed kind of came to mind. And then fast forward a few months or so later, I had a chance encounter with Gary Vaynerchuk to do some business with a government entity here. And this is the day Donald Trump won the first time around.
2016.
Yeah. So the same day as when I was in this meeting with Gary, and he was just, you know, we were just having a chat around like the power of content and what the world of social can actually do for brands.
So was
businesses.
he consulting out here then?
No. So he had his agency back in the US, and they had a setup in the UK. That in itself is another story I can get into. But just how that encounter came together was amazing. Again, a few people took a punt on me. I think there's definitely a theme there. But we had a conversation. He kind of just not just confirmed it, but he showed me the output of what investing in that field could look like. And I was like, shit, there's a lot of parallels to what we're seeing in the market and as an opportunity. So I was like, sack off the web and mobile. We can't be the best in the world at it. But the internet age of mobile and social is so young, so fresh. We can benchmark against the best in the world. You know, what does the best in the world look like? We can go find it. You know, who's doing best in class sport? We can find that. Who's doing best in class hospitality, etc. So you can find it pretty quickly. And then that's the benchmark. And how do we onboard brands to it? And no one wanted to be on Facebook back then. No one wanted to be on Twitter. No brand wanted to.
Yeah.
So we were the on-ramp for brands. And I was, you know, pitching in something with something that I really believed in. So we pivoted the business from a design and build to a social first creative agency. And we spent years working with SMEs, government, not years. We spent over the years, I should say, we had spent time working with SMEs, government agencies, influencers, like all sorts, like, you know, business owners direct. And it got to the point where I realized what, let's just say, I liked and didn't like to work with. And for me, I wanted to build an environment where I want to work with the types of brands and partners that enable us to do amazing work, because I want to bring amazing work to the team that we're building and get them excited about the work we're bringing. If I'm bringing in shitty work, then they're going to be like, well, this sounds really boring. This isn't fun. So again, it wasn't hugely calculated, but it was quite simple. And then very lucky, we started to build working with brands and platforms. So I'll get to platforms in a sec, but with the brands that we were working with, it was all like, who are the brands who are shaping culture, who are changing industry? And now fast forward to where we are today, we're very lucky. We're working, you know, with the brands who are shaping audio, Spotify, retail, Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. So like these brands who have come in and changed industry around the world. And we're helping them localize, come into market, do amazing things in the region, not just UAE, Saudi, Egypt, etc. And that's been a real journey for us, because alongside that, we've also been working directly with platforms and learning and building amazing relationships. So we're the first actually the day that IGTV launched, if you remember, we launched a made for mobile video studio called Vertical.
Okay.
So the day it launched, we launched Vertical. Yeah. And we're the first in the region to have a made for mobile production studio, which sounds like just run around the camera sideways, but it's not, right? It's like, how do you tell the story? How do you make it social first? How do you make it optimized for scale? So if you go do one shoot, how do you get X amount of pieces of content? And we did a production one day for a brand where they gave us a budget that they used for the year prior to produce 17 photos or 18 photos across the whole campaign. And that same budget, we were able to maximize one TVC, which was for YouTube. So it's not, but it was a TVC, it was a minute long. We had 6 recipe videos, 32 how-to videos, and 3,000 photos. And I was like, the traditional model is broken.
Yeah.
Like, we can do this different. And people refer today as the Netflix model, so the hyper-personalization at scale. So that's how the agency morphed and evolved, and then hit COVID, and that became another journey.
But so up until that, I mean, that's not a lot of people won't know this, but you must have been one of the first to kind of set up that type of agency out here in the Middle East. Because I mean, there was 2 or 3 others I could think of in those early days, sort of digital first, sort of particularly content and web and build. I mean, who were you coming up against? Hug? Maybe?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So Hug were probably the bigger players back then. That's a blast from the past.
I know that because Tim, I used to work with Tim in London at an agency, and they were upstairs in the building,
right? Yeah. So in Media City, there's a lot of stories here for sure. But no, Hug, back then probably. And it's so funny because the businesses that we were working with, or we were pitching to, just didn't believe in social, didn't believe in digital. They're like, no, traditional. Why am I going into social mobile world where I can put a billboard out and I know I can see it. It's there every day. It's like, yeah, but it's expensive. It's not delivering value. And I guess this is where I looked at the advertising world about delivering impact, not applause. Like, I don't give a shit about awards. If it makes our partners look good and feel good, absolutely, we invest in supporting that. But I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to drive impact. And there's a lot of traditional folk, and I'm not saying it's not like people who are old. It's just been
very traditional.
But like the industry is built on traditional values of entertainment. I want to build a beautiful 1-minute video, shot and crafted amazingly. Great, do that, but go into Hollywood. Go do it there, because the business is giving you money and they want results. And if you can make amazing, creative for me is it's sales. Ultimately, a salesperson does one-to-one sales. Creative does one-to-many. And people don't like to hear that. I sit in front of senior creators and I say that, and you can see they kind of twitch. And it's like, no, like, my work's beautiful. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, great. It's it is beautiful, but does it drive a result? Yeah. And if you're taking a transaction, if there's a value exchange of I'm giving you money to drive ROI for my business, as a business or as a marketeer or a leader or whatever, you want to see a result. And if you can't deliver a result beyond a nice trophy, then what's the point of that investment?
Exactly.
So that was always my model in my mind, right? Like, how do we drive business results for people? Like, that for me is, I've got this belief of relationships over transactions. I want to build long lifetime value with a partner. And the way we do that is repeatable partner delight at scale, right? And for me, that's a outcome results based conversation or objective, not a cool, we're going to do this beautiful TVC, we're gonna spend all this money, and then we're going to invest in building this award and send it off to Cannes, and it's going to be great, and then hopefully you'll sign again with us next year because we're giving you a trophy. It's like, no, that's great, like, clap, well done, but have you driven business result? And that's the mold of the business that's different. So when you say who are we comparing against, I grew up and never worked in an agency before, so I didn't really care. I didn't really know at the time. Truthfully, I was just like, I just want to drive value and do something different, and then I want to be the best in the world at it. So that's always been my objective. And that's when COVID hit, that opened the doors, right? So all of a sudden, we started to be able to deliver work around the world. So we started working in Saudi in 2018, end of 2018, 2019. So that was our first sort of like project outside the country. Outside of Dubai, going into Saudi, and then very quickly built a model. With social, was always on social. So how do we build a model for always on social? How do we build for anywhere in the world, et cetera, et cetera? And COVID hit, and we just closed the doors. So we closed our doors very early. I was in the mindset of protect the team. How do we do that? And we realized actually this can function very, very well. Like, the system, we started without an office. Now we're working without an office, and the system didn't break, right? Whereas I knew friends of mine who ran PR agencies. Otherwise, they're like, shit, what do I do with all this filing? Like, I've got to like scan this stuff. I've got to like, how do I get, like, there's so much admin debt that they had to consider. So we ended up going global in COVID in 2020, doing work from Singapore, Thailand to Miami, LA, Mexico to UK to Oz, like all over. And in fact, we were like almost like we had a checklist of countries, like just or a tally of countries. How many countries are we actually operate, like doing work in? Because people didn't need an office, they just needed a Zoom call. So that meant we got benchmarked against best in the world. So when you ask me who do we compare ourselves to, like I start to see best in the world, and I was like, well, that's who I'm benchmarking against. I don't want to be a big fish in a small pond. I want to be best in class. And for me, it's all measured on impact, and that impact is, well, who's driving impact around the world? What does that look like?
Same lesson you learned when you were playing basketball.
Totally. Yeah. That's why I said it's quite interesting. So yeah, I never, I don't look or learn by looking around at what the competition does. Like, don't get me wrong, you should always look around and be wary of where the market is. But if you're focused on building the best product, or if your objective is to build the best product, you have to understand what your partner's biggest challenges are. Because if you're not solving that, then all you're doing is selling really hard to sell something that doesn't fit their need. And I believe in solving those needs over a long time. So that's just always been what's driven me.
Yeah, the reason I just brought it up is because I don't think many people won't realize just how pioneering that was to set up like a digital business back in those, because this was TV and print. Like I worked in the media industry in London when I came here. And when I came in 2008, I couldn't get over how different it was. It was like there was the internet, but there wasn't a lot going on there. And TV kind of ruled things here. Yeah. And magazines, I could get more magazines.
ITP and Motivate around the corner. They ran it.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
And 7 days, like I told you, you go and see them. I want a newspaper salesperson. It was a Geordie guy that ran it. It was the most old school. It was great for me in recruitment because everyone I knew who was losing their job in London because they were traditional, they could get a job here.
Yeah.
So it was very different then. And you've made it sound incredibly easy, by the way. So no doubt in that journey, there's been some challenges.
100%.
Could you just, I think it's always good for people to hear about some of the challenges that you faced and overcome, if you wouldn't mind just sort of
100%. That's like, look, it's not that it's never ending, but every day you learn something new. And if I'm not, the day I stop learning is probably the day I lose interest, truthfully. If I zoom out and look at the sort of the phases of business, rather than like this one moment or this time, I'd say that, the time of, I guess, operating as a very, very small unit of not really knowing who we're serving for, was a phase where, again, test and learn, like I said, trying to figure out who we wanted to who we wanted to work with. That was a phase, and that came with a lot of failures. I remember pitching a project to someone in Emirates Leisure Retail, and it was something that they wanted, and we had a really positive conversation person. So when I followed up, she sort of was dismissing me. It was like a Thursday afternoon. My mistake to do it as a end of week sort of conversation, but she was basically just like laughing me off the phone, and she didn't hang up quick enough, and she kind of like was fobbing me off to her friend while she was like, yeah, absolutely, very interested, I'll get back to you. And then as she's kind of like putting the phone away, she's fobbing me off to her friend, and I could hear the conversation. I was like, shit, this is not the type of people I want to work with. Like, I don't want to be a salesperson, I want to be a partner. And so that was a part of the business where there's a lot of failure in terms of growing, right? And I don't know if you've heard this expression of 4 different types of luck, but the first is you just hustle, you try and like move as much energy in the world, and then something comes your way. It's like the game of probability, right? The second is that you've just got like pure dumb luck, like you win the lottery, right? Like you just show up in the right place, right time, you win something. The third is you've seen it before. So it's like, how do you leverage that experience to your benefit? It's just positioning. And then the fourth is like branding, right? Where you're Warren Buffett, you've got such a powerful brand that opportunities find you, like that luck comes to you. And so for me, it was the first, right? It was hustle. Like, how do I build the energy at the beginning of the business to get a lot of momentum, or any momentum? And that was hard. There's a lot of failure within that. Then there was a building of the business, right? So once we started to get the business in, like building the business, and I talk about that, it's mostly people, right? How do we scale a company? And going into COVID, we're about 20 odd people. And that was such a wild time, right? Like pre-COVID, I was getting flights to Saudi, like I get a WhatsApp at 10:30 at night being, can you be here tomorrow morning in Jeddah? I was like, yeah, 10 a.m. means I have to fly at like 4, could be at the airport for 4 a.m.
So when was this? Sorry?
2018.
Right, wow.
Yeah. So just jumping on flights back the same day, got a project here with Coca-Cola, got a project there with this, and just like, whoa, this stuff is just like flying so quickly. And that was amazing energy, but it's hard. Like everyone was busting ass in the company. We were just all hustling really, really hard, like long days, long nights, but everyone, we played hard, we worked hard, we did it all together. And then COVID hit and went, poof, everyone worked from their own little like domain, right? From the safety of their own home. And look, the big objective for me during COVID was, how do I protect the people? And I always said there's like 3 layers of how we want to do this. And I've never been through that experience before, right? And I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have many like local mentors at the time.
Yeah.
But I also didn't have any, like, those people that I did speak to had no point of reference of going through something like that before. So I'd just listen to a load of podcasts, and I'd pick and choose. Like, I'd listen to Bill Gurley, I'd listen to Daniel Ek, et cetera. So I'm listening to what they're doing as a company to pivot in this time. And it was like I was sitting in a room like this, like, just like you're sat here like, shit, this is a really interesting conversation. I'm not contributing, I'm just listening, but like, this is what you're doing through COVID. This is what you're doing, with people. This is what you're doing with the business. But at the same time, I'm in a market where they were saying that, if they changed the law, so like you could let go of people straight away. There's no reason to.
Did they change the law during COVID?
There was some sort of.
Yeah.
I won't go to. Don't quote me word for word on it, but there was an adjustment where people could be made redundant very quickly, and I was like, no, I don't believe in that. I want to protect the team, however possible, and that's what we did. And I said, guys, there's 3 phases. The first phase is like no salaries are touched, and around me, bear in mind, like a lot of our friends working in other companies were either getting impacted, so getting made redundant, getting half pay or whatever else pay deducted from them, or just basically in fear of like, what am I going to do? Am I going to live in Dubai? Am I going to do this? What's happening, right? So for me, I was like, I want to kill that anxiety. I want to kill that pain. So like, there's 3 phases. As long as the business continues in this format, no one's salary is being touched. If we start to lose opportunity or business, et cetera, then myself and Linda, my partner, like we'll take a hit. It'll be us, and then the next would be, okay, guys, as across the business, if we get to this threshold, like we'll do salary considerations, and then only if we ever get to this point, then we'll have to make decisions around people in the business. Fortunately, we never had to even consider that. We would lose a client, and the same day we'd win a client, and it was just like the corona coaster of life, right? Like things were just going crazy, and then 2020, if you look at it on the macro, everyone beyond hospitality really sort of did well. Business grew, became a digital business. Anything connected to digital and transformation did pretty well. And we were very close to that. And like I said, we started working all over the world. And that's actually, from a hiring perspective, is really interesting, because all of a sudden we could hire anywhere in the world. And I wanted to, like, if we're going to deliver in other markets, if we can hire the best in other markets, like I want to look outside. Again, I want to bring the best people, I want to build the best culture, I want to build the best company. So that's what we did. And we started to grow from 20 odd to like 40 odd. And then same thing happened in 2021, kept growing. So again, what was that pain of the business was, shit, we're growing, but at the same time, we don't have enough headcount. But other people are like doing this all from parts of the world where they're being locked in their rooms fundamentally. How do we breed a culture? And I was looking in a lot, right? Like a lot of it was like, how do I solve this internal issue, the internal business pain, versus where I was very much external looking out. And then the same thing happened in 2022. So it was years of like growth, right? And we got to, I think the biggest we've ever been is about 125 people. So
wow.
From 25 to 125 in 2023. So that was wild.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was wild. That's wild.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, but to grow that quick, all the layers of infrastructure that you need, and how hard it is to keep people then. I mean, there must have been an HR logistical nightmare.
Yeah. And that's why I said a lot of it was looking in, and we had amazing people who care. We have had amazing people who care.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I get it. We're learning a lot as we go, as a business, as a country, as a community, as an industry, right? We're trying to do things that have never been done before in many different ways. And I always want to build the best. So if it's ultimately we're an ideas company, right? So I want to be the best ideas company in the world, but at the same time, I want to have the best culture. I want to have the best functions. I want to have the best operations. I want to have the best workflow. I want to build the best engine, basically. So a lot of that was invested internally. And to your point, like building that, we didn't want to bust at the seams. And at the same time, there's other agencies, other companies who grew even more than that. And like when I hear of that, I'm like, shit, what's the pain that they went through? Because we went through a lot of pain. I went through a lot of pain. And people don't necessarily see that. You have to, that comes with the territory.
Is that offshore and onshore?
Yeah. So as a business, we've gone global. We went global in that respect, right? So we're about 50-50 split.
Yeah.
As a result, people's like, how do we bring the people in Dubai? How do we bring them back to the office? Our office doesn't fit. It's not fit for purpose. How do we moved into a new office. Then it's like, well, what do we do there? Like, do we ask people to come into the office more? Do we ask, do we still give people the flexibility? We brought a lot of like policy and support in, and then that becomes the norm, right? That becomes the standard.
Yeah.
And then you look around and the world's changing around you. COVID, it goes away. People want face-to-face. Our clients that we were working with in other parts of the world, like, paying for you to fly over or bring your teams over for certain projects. Like, it just makes sense for us to have a local partner. Plus, if I want to shout at someone or want something done very quickly, I can just get them to come to my office. Like, it's very different to do that over Zoom. And I totally get that. So we made the conscious decision in 23 to start looking more regionally. Like the region was doing very well comparative to, the UK, the US, other markets were sort of going through the post-COVID sort of, not gloom, but like definite like correction. And then we look at what's going on in the market here, and, on our doorstep was amazing opportunity that we saw across the pond in Saudi Arabia. Again, like they're reshaping an entire country, culture, the full agenda, right? And for me, working with culture shapers, like that's what I love to do. So we wanted to bring the focus more locally. And again, that became another adjustment, right? Because as that as that strategy started to shift, with that, we had regional pain as well. We had a war breakout in Q4 last year, which changed the landscape for the media and marketing and advertising space in the region completely.
It's the war in Israel and Gaza.
Gaza. So that caused a lot of the brands that we work with are international brands, so they had to look at the landscape and have I consider a lot of things that were well beyond what the work we were doing. But unfortunately, war gets normalized, and you start to look around, and also the changes going on in Saudi Arabia as well. Like, it's maturing, and I remember the changes we saw in Dubai, right? Like now you drive around on Sheikh Zayed Road, you see Palm, Jebel Ali, but that's been on the shelf for 20 years. Yeah. Like nothing's been going on there for 20 years. They reprioritized in 2008, 2009. And now you're looking at what's going on in Saudi. There's a certain maturity of what's actually being not necessarily just heavily invested, but is most likely to convert. And this year, a lot of the, again, excuse me, but the fuck you money's gone, right? So you had a lot of people come and take the piss. A lot of people came in and were literally just, billing and invoicing stupid money and stupid numbers, transacting effectively, and walking away and feeling really good about it. But ultimately, the market's wise. The country's very smart in terms of where they invest, and they're calling people's bluffs, and they're like, we're not doing that anymore. So we're building a much bigger vision, a much longer objective. So that adjustment's happening this year, which is a good thing to do. Like I remember, Dubai went through the same phase, and it cleaned out a lot of the shit, which is good. It's good. It's just people will feel that. Businesses will feel that.
It's maturity, and I've certainly noticed this year has been. There's been a year of great big announcements, but there's been a fair degree of procrastination in the market. And there's always been a level of procrastination here versus elsewhere. But I felt like it's just been, particularly the second half of this year, people have really taken their sweet time making decisions. And I think the prices of oil have gone up and down, which have affected things as well. But I still am very bullish on the region, but you've got to go through those corrections. It's going through a normal level, a degree of maturity, right? Yeah. The demand for talent now, I feel people want local experience now versus before, where they're prepared to take anyone from anywhere.
Yeah. Well, look, we went through the same thing, right? When things were very exciting and going up, and going up, when I say going up in a way that we've never seen before, right? In 2020, 21, 22, it was a fight for talent. If you want to bring it back to like the people space, right?
Everyone was in that scrap.
Everyone was in that scrap.
Including me.
Yeah. But like everyone was, right? Even the business of placing people.
Yeah.
And that's sort of changed a bit this year. Like we were not immune to macro conditions. You can have the best intentions to build a business that does ABC for its team, for its people, for its partners, everything. But when the macro conditions change, like people feel it. Businesses change. Yeah. People have to respond. Yeah. And as a result, like when you say procrastination, it's also because I think a lot of that sort of, willy-nilly, fuck you, money's now gone. It's like, well, now I'm being made accountable for what I invest in, and I want to make sure I'm investing in the right thing. So there's extra diligence, there's extra sign-off, there's extra approval, because no one wants to be hung out to dry. Yeah. So I think that's what we're all feeling. Well, when I say we're all feeling, I think that's what the region's feeling when it comes to decision making and pushing things through. But knowing that, I'm okay, because I know that's a short-term thing. The medium long term is still very positive for the region. Like Dubai has gone through so many iterations, but if you look at where it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's always been on the up. The ultimately, if you zoom out long enough, the trajectory is all the way up. And I'd rather be in that long term bet than in that short term trading.
It's interesting. You said 30 years, because I look at it 20 years, because that's close to when I got here. But you're completely right in the sense that it happens that people might go, oh, well, these projects have been delayed. Oh, Palm Jebel Ali, they haven't built it, but it's happening. These things eventually happen, and they're in no rush. It works for them. So what's been, because part of this, obviously the big part of what we do in this podcast is we try and understand the kind of journey behind the entrepreneur. And you've taken quite a fair few risks, it sounds like, have you got, tell us a bit about what life's like at home then, your support network.
It's like therapy now.
Yeah.
Life at home. Look, life at home is amazing. So Linda, my wife, I've known her since, you're just going to quote me on this, but since I was like 21, 22, right? But we've known each other, like she went to school here as well. And she was actually working in media. She was working at ITP. And she somewhat saw the writing on the wall, like, traditional, digital, like what's happening. And she took a punt on me again. And she wanted to get out of traditional. I said, come into the business and, help me build. And she did. So at home, what does family look like? A lot of it was just her and I, like, we're like, from day one.
So you set up from day one, the parent?
No, so I started Tactical initially. And then she ended up, getting on board about 8 years ago. Yeah. And she was always like, she came from a media sales background, so I was very confident that she could help me grow the business, and that would be amazing. But she's also very, very impact led as well. So it's like, what's the value we're bringing to our partners? So that there was very good alignment because there's shared value or shared values, and we've been working together since. So there was definitely friction in the early days of working on the same project. So we've divided. So we don't spend a lot of time on the same work and then taking it home. So we've managed to find a rhythm that works there. But also as the business has grown, we've brought in, managers, leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been able to, give ourselves domains that we cover in our own space, so that we know where not to cross over, or at least we know when we are crossing over. And then again, COVID was a big change. So we realized all our friends were, we had no friends really during COVID because they were spending time with their kids, and we were very late to the game. And very fortunately, on National Day 2020, found out that Linda was pregnant, and we now have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, Millie and Bradley.
Congrats.
So thank you. Yeah, they're amazing. They've been the most humbling experience of my life. You learn more from a child than anyone else I've ever met, because they've still got the innocence. They're still very impressionable, don't get me wrong, but they've got the innocence of not knowing anything else. Whereas when you deal with adults, they have so many opinions, so many like complexities to themselves because of their experiences. And I'll never forget like certain things that I've learned from Millie. Like, one day she pushed Bradley, and I was like, Millie, this is not, like, you can't do this. I need you to apologize. Please apologize. And I look at her, she's like looking at myself, my wife, and Bradley, and you can just see she's like, it's just blank. Like, I was like, is she just going to be one of those kids that push and, bully people around? And I was like, and then Linda actually said, I don't think she understands what you're saying. Like, I don't think she understands what apologize means. It's like, Millie, say sorry. She's like, I'm sorry, Bradley, I love you. And I was like, fuck. Like, how many situations have I been in at work where I'm asking for something or I'm doing something, and in my head it's really clear, but to the person on the other side receiving that information, they just don't understand. And then on the back of that, we don't meet at the same endpoint.
Fascinating.
And I was like, shit. Yeah. What? Like, so for me, kids are an amazing experience of not just personal reward, but very humbling in my own personal growth and maturity as well. Which, if you knew me in my 20s, I was not very mature. I like to have.
Why not? You're allowed to have fun,
exactly. But no, like that for me on a I guess at home personal level, like people are amazing, right? And I've said this before. Like life's really simple. Inputs equals outputs. Like people complicate it because they think like the world revolves around them. It doesn't, right? People make things complex, emotional complexity. And for me, life's very straightforward. And when you see it with a newborn or a kid, like it's very straightforward. Like you just don't know how to control the inputs, and that's where I probably struggle as a parent. But ultimately, that's sort of where I look at life in general. Like if I eat trash, I feel like trash. If I consume trash on social or internet or whatever, my brain is full of trash. So it's like, how do I control those so I don't get lost in the trash, in the garbage, and then don't feel like shit as an outcome of it? So yeah, that's
a great analogy.
It's a hypothesis I'm testing out at the moment, but I'm very careful about what I invest my time into.
Yeah. And what are you excited about in the future? What are you looking forward to?
Look, I think my life is very much split, with work, family, and the things that matter to me most, which is friends and being healthy, etc. So I want to build an amazing business that people are very excited about being part of, where they say like that's where I learned the most, that's where I had the opportunity to do some of the best work of my life. But at the same time, I want to make sure I'm invested in the relationships that matter, which is my family, my kids, my wife, obviously, my friends. So what I'm excited about is just that personal growth, and I know it sounds a bit cliche. It's really fucking cliche, but it's very much about how do I look back in however many years and say, yeah, no regrets. That was an amazing journey, amazing ride, and I gave it everything I had.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mate, it's been fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Pleasure. If anyone wants to reach out to you, is LinkedIn the best way?
LinkedIn's a great way. Probably LinkedIn's probably the best way. You can email me, hit us up on the website on wearetactical.com. We're there.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much.
Amazing.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Cheers. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Bye.